When it comes to crowdfunding, where do you see most filmmakers failing?
Okay, it's way easier to fail at a crowdfunding campaign than it is to succeed. And I think we are finally moving away from this idea that if you build it, they will come. A crowdfunding platform is not going to make you succeed. So we have the highest success rate in the business. We have a near 80% campaign success rate. And that's because we spend several stages of feedback with our filmmakers before we say, yes, we think you're ready to crowdfund. Just like making a film, your crowdfunding campaign, generally speaking, is won or lost in the pre-production, and then your ability to execute on the plan you put together in the pre-production. The other thing is that the word crowdfunding is a compound word. There are two words in that word, and the first word is not there because it's a prettier word, it's there because it's the more important word. You cannot get funding if you do not already have the crowd. So filmmakers often make the mistake, and actually people in general in crowdfunding make the mistake that your crowdfunding is where you do your audience building. No. Crowdfunding is a phase, and it's not the first phase, of audience building that you are doing throughout your entire career, right? So you have to be able to prove through message testing, which is something that we teach, basically interacting with your crowd a lot to figure out what they like and what they don't like. You have to prove to yourself that you can get total strangers to click on the stuff that you are offering before you should ever launch a crowdfunding campaign. Otherwise, you're going to stay inside just your friends and family, right? So I think a common misperception is that, oh, it's the crowdfunding platform's job to find the non-friends and family. And I can tell you that landing on the homepage of even the biggest crowdfunding platforms, on average, filmmakers see only a 4% bump in their, and this is true for us as well. Like landing on the homepage doesn't get you a ginormous bump in strangers. You get yourself to your audience. And I think the primacy of the platform is actually kind of problematic insofar as, you know, they think, oh, if I go on one of the big platforms, that's where all the strangers will find me. No, you have to find the strangers and tell them where you are. That's actually how crowdfunding really succeeds. And the way that you do that is you get really, really specific about who your audience is, where they hang out, and how they like to be talked to, and therefore how you reach them.
What if a filmmaker tells you, well, we just want to launch this campaign and make a movie. We're not looking to like spend 6 months trying to build.
You're going to fail. I mean, you're going to fail. Unless you have, you know, the only way that works really, and is if, again, I talked about earlier about building up social currency. Well, it's the same thing of building up currency as a creative. You know, there's a reason that the Veronica Mars movie or Zach Braff, you know, they can go out and put something up and get funded right away. Well, because they have this currency with the, you know, with the world, I guess you could say, the online world, or the people, they have fans. You know, they've built up this base, right? Some filmmakers, I know some filmmakers who have made some shorts who really cultivated relationships the whole way through and crowdsourced the whole way through and then hit their goals. And then when they come back to do the second movie, it's a little easier, okay? And when they go to do the third movie, it's a little easier because they keep these people and they keep everybody involved, that entire crowd. But I've also seen, and this happened, this is actually gonna make it into the book, where same exact example where you have a you know, first-time director who really worked social media, raised, I think it was $10,000 for a short. Everybody got a copy who donated, you know, everybody loved the guy. You know, he went to do the second one, he did the same thing again, great. He went to do the third one, did even better. He won some festivals and everything, and all of a sudden he got a big head. And he said, well, I could just throw it up now. It was a year between, now he's going to do his first feature, and he needed a little bit more money, and he said, I'm going to go right back to the crowd. Of course they're going to support it. But he threw it up, he didn't engage, he didn't, all of a sudden he became, oh, I'm here, like his tweets became, I'm here and I'm there and I'm off doing this, and you know, it became like, you know, like a Gump kind of thing, like he's, you know, hobnobbing here and hobnobbing there, and nobody cared. Nobody cared anymore. It became, now you want, because every ask got bigger, like the raise got bigger, and he ended up not making it, and now he's struggling to get money for his next short. You can't I just can't stress it enough that, you know, it really, especially when it comes to crowdfunding, it all comes down to relationships, and it all comes down to building those relationships and keeping those relationships. It's crowdfunding. You know, it's crowdsourcing. It's moving a crowd. It's not moving an individual. It's not yelling at an individual. It's not making demands of an individual. It's identifying, engaging, and moving a crowd.
Have I ever advised anyone not to crowdfund? Yes. Not to say that they won't be successful in crowdfunding at all, but they aren't ready yet. I mean, the biggest question is, how much do you think I can raise? I don't know. How big is your online audience? Because you're going to need them in order to raise money. So if you have never stepped foot into the online space, you really don't know how that Twitter thing works, or you don't even have your own personal profile on Facebook, it's whoa, okay, you're not even close to being ready to start a Kickstarter campaign. First, you need to get that. First, you need to get that piece going. First, you need to be used to connecting with an audience. I'm not saying you need millions of people, but you need a core group of people. Because those are the ones who are going to help you to spread out. You're not going to be able to spread word of mouth all by yourself. You're going to have a group of people to do that. And it's going to be dependent on how active those people are and how many are they as to how much money you can raise. You know, and there is no figure. If you have 5,000 followers, you should be able to raise $30,000. No, I don't know. There are people who have 5,000 followers and only 100 people gave money. So 30,000 is not going to, you know, if they give $10 a piece, you're going to get a couple thousand. You know, you're not. There's also a huge correlation between the number of people who are lurkers and the people who actually will take money out of their wallet and give it to you. The 99-1 rule, which Julie Giles talks about. She's from Green Hat Digital, and she said 90% of your following are lurkers. They're people who are just watching. They never participate. They've clicked your page of like and they've never come back, or they just see you in the news feed and they never do anything about it. 9% of those people will retweet you, will put a thumbs up next to a comment or leave a comment, but they're not tight to you. You know, they participate, but they aren't going to convert. Only 1% of your super core, hardcore fans will ever do anything to help you, that actually actively spread the word, support everything you do, pay money to go to your events, show up if you have a meetup, that kind of thing. So when you're looking at your stats online and you think that all those 5,000 people are a sale, you'll be very disappointed when push comes to shove about how many people actually pony up for the money. So I would say that if you haven't even gotten started, no kind of crowdfunding effort should be started. If you have gotten started, you're going to have to be realistic. It's better to go over your goal than it is to not make your goal. So set it realistically. You know, how much do you really need to do what it is, and is that the main goal behind this campaign? Is it to raise money, or is it mainly to build an audience, to build up that participation? And money's nice, but that's not the main idea behind this effort, is to grow beyond your core, because a campaign like that usually helps you to get more people beyond the people that you're already engaged with, because they help you, and there's an impetus to it because there's a deadline, as opposed to constantly saying, hey, you know, retweet my stuff, hey, share my stuff. You know, that's just kind of an arbitrary effort. If you have a campaign where there's a deadline and you're all working towards some kind of, you know, goal, then there's reason to activate those people in a certain time frame, and that's what a campaign is. You know, it's a limited amount of time that you're doing some effort. If money is your only thing, then you're gonna have to be careful about how much you're asking to raise, because it depends on how helpful the audience that you already have is going to be to you.
There's a sweet spot, I think, for people for crowdfunding, and then there's the extremes. You have your celebrities who use it because they know they have a fan base, and they know that they're going to get so much support no matter what. And then you have the people with no credibility, with no, you know, it may not be their fault. It's just they haven't, you know, we're all encouraged in our life that we can do whatever we want, that we are entitled to achieve our dreams, and we can do this and we can do that. And with crowdfunding, it's, you know, people think that, oh, well, now that's the answer to my question. I just put my project up there, and since I'm entitled to have a dream, I'm entitled to write a book or make a movie or be a ballet dancer or put on my theater production, that people now are going to give me money. And they don't understand that that's just part of it. In order, you know, you have to demonstrate that you deserve, that you've earned that you've earned your place, in a sense. And so you get, you know, right now Kickstarter has over 130,000 projects. That's a lot. I mean, that is a lot. So the big boys are going to get the press. You know, the Spike Lees and the Zach Braffs, they're going to get the press. They're never going to have a problem using Kickstarter to their advantage. And I really think they are using it to their advantage. It's not illegal. They're people. They can, that's fine. But they're using it to their advantage, and there's no doubt about it. And there's people like me who, that's sort of the sweet spot. I think Kickstarter was meant for people like me, whether, I mean, I'm a filmmaker, whether you're a writer who's very prolific and has a following, but Random House won't give them a deal. Kickstarter's perfect for them, or a ballet dancer, or a theater company that puts on great shows, but they need money to sustain their season. You know, they need money for their next season. That's what Kickstarter's for, you know. People who have shown that they can really benefit from the public's help. And by doing that, by making a contribution, you're going to get something back that you know is real and tangible. Like, oh, I'm going to give XYZ theater company $40 because I've been to one of their shows, and I know I'm gonna like that show, so here's $40. I may not see the show until 6 months, but I'm helping them. You know what I mean? A guy like Zach Braff, that movie's gonna get made no matter what, you know, or whatever. So, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
We shot She's Gonna Have It in 1985. We were doing Kickstarter before there was Kickstarter. We just didn't have the technology. I was making phone calls, making personal visits, writing letters. So we did everything except social media, which social media was not around then.
Do you think that people that are already established are taking away, quote, chances from the little guys?
No, look, I understand why people might think that, but that's not the case at all. I'm bringing people to Kickstarter who never even heard of Kickstarter. I'm talking a lot of people of color who've never heard of Kickstarter, who've never made a pledge on Kickstarter. So I really think that it's a fallacy, it's a misconception, and it's just playing out wrong with the capital W, that because someone puts $5 on my film, someone who backs my film with $5, that was $5 that a young filmmaker was gonna get. And that logic does not follow through. I mean, there's concrete evidence with what Mr. Thomas did with Veronica Mars and what Zach did with his film. People, majority of the people who backed those things had never been on Kickstarter before. But I think those people backed films after that once they were made the introduction to Kickstarter. So, to be honest, I know the question. I mean, look, I know you had to ask this question, so it's cool. The two co-founders of Kickstarter told me that, you know, Mr. Thomas had flack, he caught flack. Zach caught flack, Zach flack, and that I would get the same. So this is not a surprise at all. But this is I've been hearing stuff from the very first film. She's Gonna Have It was a negative portrayal of black women. School Days, I was airing dirty laundry. Do the Right Thing would make black people run amok and riot all across the country when it came out. I was anti-Semitic because my character's Mo and Josh Flatbush in Mo Better Blues, so I just roll with the punches and keep going. And the fact that I'm here in my 3rd decade making films is concrete evidence of that. And I'm gonna keep. Kurosawa was 85, 86 when, so you know, I don't know if I can go that long, but I have many, many more films, many, many, many more stories to tell. And this little, I'm gonna use a word on you, this little brouhaha about Spike Lee comes in Bogart and Kickstarter, and he's taking advantage of the young up-and-coming filmmakers is as my good friend Mike Tyson would say, is ludicrous. For example, why would I be teaching for the past 15 years at NYU if I did not care about young filmmakers? Why would I be the artistic director of NYU Graduate Film School if I did not care about young filmmakers? Why have I given out over $200,000 in the Spike Lee Production Fund to young filmmakers at NYU if I did not care about young filmmakers? So people say what they want. The truth is the truth.
Starting to think more like an entrepreneur of, if I'm making this and I'm releasing this, I can make money myself, is a good way to start thinking about it now. And celebrities, again, would be the perfect people to be doing that because they have something to leverage, you know, that before it all crashes to the ground, get your own thing going. And there are, you know, people who are starting to do that. We talk about Ed Burns, but even Tom Hanks and people like that have gone into web series to try it out, to see how is this working. They have almost less to lose than somebody who's, you know, putting all their life savings and trying to get it started, because they're just sort of dabbling and putting their toes in, but they can see, you know, I think this is maybe where this stuff is going and I shouldn't wait. I should go in and get started and start trying to shape it or figure it out before everybody, you know, finds that they have to do that. So I don't think that independent filmmakers should expect at all to be able to raise money like a celebrity raises money. But celebrities, you know, generally aren't overnight sensations. You know, usually they've put in years of their talent and trying to get discovered and having people believe in them. And the same situation is happening with you as a filmmaker. Get started now. It's no time like the present to start building up on that audience and that recognition in the industry, because there's lots of ways this can pay off for you.
The ebb and flow of creating projects and being in between projects and coming up with new ideas is the same for somebody that's uber famous as it is for somebody who might not be famous. It's all scalable, but what it does do, when you come up with a crowdfunding campaign, and you know, like if I ask my mom, she probably now knows what Kickstarter is, and she didn't know what that was before. And that's what it does. I mean, we're shifting the paradigm from saying, I have this goal in life, there's things out there that can help me achieve that goal. And so, you know, why does anybody have a spokesperson for any sort of company or any sort of industry? It's because you want to get word out about that industry. So whenever somebody famous has a successful crowdfunding campaign, it just sheds a lot of light on crowdfunding. And I look at that as a plus and not so much a minus. I don't think it detracts from my ability to do a crowdfunding campaign. If anything, it increases the pool of people that may find out about my project that might not otherwise have known about it. And that's helpful.
I think it's scarcity mentality. I think it's like, oh, that money is now taken away from indie film. No. That money was never headed to indie film ever. Veronica Mars, owned by Warner Brothers? Calm the fuck down. All it's doing is bringing all those fans got on it, and then all the people, some guy donated 10 grand because he wants to be on the show, because he's got a walk on. That's a different game. That's a networking, and again, it goes back to how long is a Veronica Mars audience built? It's just like Kevin Smith's audience, Edward Burns' audience. They got to build an audience with the old model, with a giant factory that coughed up their stories. Now, Edward Burns and Kevin Smith are doing much more actual indie stuff.
Generating a fan base. There's a question. I've never solved the generating a fan base question. I tried to generate a fan base when I was trying to be a singer-songwriter, trying to do electronic music, and so I tried these sort of things, and I found it very hard to do.
I never would have launched a campaign for 6 figures if I hadn't spent 2 years building an online audience with a website. So, it's one of those 10 years to an overnight success kind of thing, where all of the work you've put in the back, you hope, helps you do this thing that was the most ambitious thing I'd ever done in my life, as far as, a Kickstarter campaign is all or nothing. And when you hit launch and it says $115,000 and it says $0 and 0 cents, from here to there is a long way to go. But I felt like I had done everything in my power over the last couple of years to build a website, and I felt like enough people knew who I was and that it was a strong enough project with some external validation from IFP and from Lincoln Center, that it was, I felt like if I failed, that I would have done everything I possibly could, and then I wouldn't feel bad about it. So, the main thing was building an audience, and the way that I went about it is different than a lot of people will, as far as, I was talking about the craft of filmmaking and the behind the scenes stuff, as opposed to just this one particular project. But ultimately, I think it comes down to that approach of saying, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, these things aren't magic. You can make a great video, but ultimately you have to have a feeling of you've been working on this for a long time, and people know who you are and are invested in your success. So it's not, I think the Kickstarter campaigns that don't succeed a lot of the times are ones where people, saw somebody else doing this and thought, oh, well, I can do that too, and they didn't really understand the amount of work that the other people did, the successful campaigns did, not only during their campaign, but before it, when a lot of that work happens.
And the other thing is, if you're coming to me for help in the last 5 days of your crowdfund campaign, chances are you're too late. Because, and this is the thing about crowdfund campaigns that people don't understand, the way you structure your campaign is how will largely determine whether you're successful or not. And that goes in terms of how much you ask for, what your rewards are, what your positioning is, what your call to action is. All of that, which is in the structuring of the campaign, will help determine whether you're successful or not.
And then we just asked a lot of people who we'd seen doing it that we had contacts to. And you just Google, and today, how do you learn? You Google and you ask people, and you get on social media and you ask people.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I run a roundtable of writers and directors and actors and producers, and we meet every Thursday, and we've been doing that for 19 years, and it's several thousand people. And so I put out the word to my table saying, if anyone knows about Kickstarter, please send me information. So I got a lot of response, and so I started researching successful campaigns like Double Fine and some of the things Neil Gaiman was doing, and then ultimately Neil showed me the campaign that his wife Amanda Palmer was doing, and so I was learning from that, and then just kind of course correcting as I went. And some things you do don't work, and some things you do work, and then also you build a team. And so when someone shows up who wants to help, first of all you find out what their skills are, and then you say, okay, well, let's see if they're actually going to do it rather than just talk about doing it. And what's really also amazing is how fast everything is. There's instantaneous response, and so it could be a 24/7 job if you let it, but you also have to not get exhausted because you have to keep a clear head to be able to do your job.
How much time went into pre-planning?
It's a couple months, 2 or 3 months, yeah, and that was both shooting the video and also just reading up on Kickstarter, talking to people, learning. But also, we actually launched about a month later than we intended, simply because we had to make some further tweaks, and we were refining the project. Because also, that's the other part of it, you're also working on the project as well, the series of films, and you're developing, the concept builds and grows, and people will give you input, and then you're responsive to that. It really is a very direct two-way conversation.
I didn't really have a sort of plan. I mean, I've been working on this Kickstarter campaign for actually 2 years. It just has evolved, you know, and each time I'm ready to send it out, and I've been ready a couple of times before, even a year ago, I just get nervous and scared, and I redo it. And so it's really been evolving like soup, you know, and they say the longer the soup cooks, you know, the better it becomes. So I hope it works.
And I'll be honest with you, you know, it's not quite as neat and clean as you would hope. You use your best judgment, you go with your gut, because I think your gut is your best guide for this kind of a social experience. It's not a sales job. It's got to be about something bigger than that. So it felt like if we're really vulnerable and honest and candid and committed to what we're doing, and put that message out, whether it's the video or the copy or however we present, our ways of saying thank you, the perks that we put together, the people that we enrolled from my film industry community to be a part of that, if we created that as the ethos, the fabric of who we are and what we're doing, and we stayed true to that, how bad could we fail? So that's how we began, was just sort of seat of the pants. And we've learned so much every week, and it's only been 2 weeks into the campaign, we've learned so much.
I think there's a bit of a fantasy out there right now that you can just go on to Kickstarter or Indiegogo and put your project up there and people will come seeking you. But I don't think that really happens. I think it's really a dirty, down in the dirt, hard struggle. If somebody knows different than me, I'd like to hear from them. But that's the way I perceive it.
It is your responsibility on any platform to drive traffic, and you start with your friends and family. That's your first 20 or 30% in. Why? Because strangers like to pick a winner. They need to see momentum, and they need to see inevitability of success, right? So you can demonstrate the inevitability of success by making a kick-ass crowdfunding video. The momentum you have to generate from your community first, which is why it's a really good idea to build a crowd. So you're not just going to your friends and family, but your immediate community is already people who are like, yeah, I want to see this thing, right? So that by the time you launch your campaign, you're not just limited to your mom, dad, uncle, and like a couple of your brother's banker friends.
And what people need to think about is that crowdfunding is very much like making a film. You know, that it's a lot of prep, you know, and all the more work you do in the prep, it's going to benefit you in production. That if you prep properly, the production will be much smoother. And if you don't prep properly, you're going to be scrambling, you know, and then there's post, there's the follow through. So, you know, I think being realistic about who your audience is and how much of an audience you have, and making that, you know, sync with your goal. And then also thinking about your audience and potentially what they'd want from you in terms of rewards, and providing those providing creative and interesting rewards. You know, having a compelling call to action and compelling video, and being personable, and then, you know, working it, or, you know, having enough people on board to help work it during the campaign.
Crowdfunding campaign, you have to be very, you know, a leader and a very charismatic person and a team player, but there's a couple of real components that you need. You really need your social media type of sort of magician there, very important. Number two, you really need sort of like the programming director, because there's so many channels you are sending out content to, whether it's Twitter or this or that. It's almost like running a radio station. And then thirdly, you need someone who will do some press outreach, you know, to reach the press. So I mean, either it's yourself doing it all, or it's two people, but there's really like three components to it. You know, they really need one person who is really running the social media, one person who is really trying to talk to the press, and a third person who is in charge of just constantly tweeting and sending content, whether it's videos or uploading videos, blogging, reblogging, sending, broadcasting out.
Social media is a tool for getting people to do stuff. Generally speaking, the highest conversion rate to watching a movie, contributing to a campaign, will come from direct emails. So actually, think about it as concentric circles. The outermost concentric circle is all the people you don't know. That's most of the people. Inside that is everyone you can reach through social media. And you can grow that capacity, right? But it's not entirely reliable. A lot of times it's feed-based or it's algorithm-based. So when you tweet something, it's not guaranteed that 100% of your followers will see it. When you post something on Facebook, God knows how they display it to people. Like that is a secret hidden behind lock and key, even when you pay for it. So social media is good, but thanks to the power of the smartphone, you can reach everybody by email, and if they're really excited to get your emails, they will open them and read them, right? So I never look at social media as like, once I get to 200,000 Facebook followers, I'm done. Because I've seen campaigns with 200,000 Facebook followers fail, right? Getting people to like you on Facebook only proves that you can get people to like you on Facebook, right? If you can get them to like you on Facebook, can you then get them to sign up for a mailing list because you're giving them some sort of reason or incentive to do so? And then once you reach them in their inbox, will they click on the stuff that you send them? This is all easily trackable through all of the tools that are available to us now. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, trust me, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. So what's really important is to be able to increase your direct outreach capacity. So part of the pre-campaign buildup is to try to really grow your email lists primarily. And whether that's because you're doing a ton of outreach through social media and then you're getting people to sign up for your email list, or it's because you're partnering with people who themselves have email lists, organizations, things like that. So the first part of your outreach is direct. How many people can you reach in their inbox, and what is the work it will take to reach all of the people you can conceivably reach in their inboxes? And I would include in direct outreach actually Facebook direct messaging, Twitter direct messaging. You have to be careful with that, because if you just copy and paste to everyone, number one, Facebook will shut you down. And number two, you're likely to kind of insensitively send somebody something that may not be appropriate. Like if you're not paying attention, you might send your crowdfunding campaign to your friend who's like, I just lost my mom. Or your friend who's like, I have no money.
You get some negatives every once in a while, like, oh, I don't know you, so don't send me tweets and stuff like that. You get stuff like that, but then, you hit a couple of people later and somebody retweets me, and I'm say, hey, thank you, and that's enough for me to keep going, because not everybody shares the same mentality, and I just feed off of that. You're gonna have negativity and things like that, but you have to, again, here comes the thick skin. You just let it roll off and you keep on going.
Anyone who just says, oh, John, help me with my crowdfunding campaign. To me, it's like, I don't have a relationship with you. You're reaching out to me when you just want money or you want my help getting you money. It's like, well, you haven't learned anything from any lesson that I've ever taught. It's like, why? What is the point? Why would I engage with you at that point? If you want to engage with me in advance of that, in any way, shape, or form, even to ask me a question on Twitter and seek my advice on something, or make a joke, or somehow involve me as a person, great. And then you have a crowdfund campaign and you say, hey, John, could you do this because we have a relationship? Sure. But I don't even keep track of how many people say, oh, promote my this, that, or the other thing, and I don't have a relationship with them, and I ignore it, and I feel perfectly fine ignoring it, because that person hasn't made the effort to have a relationship with me.
I've sold over 100 scripts, all of the studios and the networks, and in those cases I didn't have to raise the money. For instance, when I was a producer on Sliders, we had a 22 episode order, our budget was $1.3 million per episode. I didn't have to raise that money. So although I knew I could write, and I know I can write and direct and produce, I'd never raised funds before. I didn't know if I would succeed. So the first thing I did was I treated it as something new I had to learn. And I spent several months talking to people, learning how to do it, building a team, shooting the video, and really putting effort into the video, because that would be, what I'd be using to show I could do the project. And but I didn't know if it would work. I didn't know if I could raise money at all. And now we're up to 158,000. We still have several weeks, a number of weeks to go. We're going to be having a panel at Comic-Con. So 158 is not our final number by any means. And so what I basically did was I realized I had to treat it with respect. And but I welcomed that. I welcomed learning a new thing, but I had no assumption that I would succeed. And going in with that attitude actually was very helpful, because then it became a continual learning process. And the main thing I also knew was that you had to be in direct communication day by day with your backers, with your audience. You couldn't just, it's not pushing the big red button and then, walking away. That's, I think, why a lot of people fail.
A lot of people just don't get it. And, again, it's that if you build it, they will come mentality. And it just does not work in, it might work with products. You see like the Pebble watch or something like that. Like, it might work with a product because people are so awed by and say, oh, I want one of those. But with a film, the competition is so fierce for your eyeballs. There's so many crowdfunding campaigns. And if you are popular on social media, you are getting inundated with people saying, look at my campaign, look at it, look at it, look at it. It's the people that say, hey, I'm doing a movie on da-da-da-da-da, and you go, oh, that's cool. And where you at with it? Well, we're probably 6 months out from even pre-production, but this is what we're gonna do. And I happen to notice that it's a movie about baseball. I understand you're a baseball fan, da-da-da-da. Why, what's your favorite team? And you're cultivating that relationship. Even if it's not just doing it directly to me one-on-one, but doing it to your whole entire group and asking those questions, and getting them involved. It makes such a difference that by the time, when you finally get to that point, when you're ready to launch, and you finally make what we call the ask, you haven't asked for anything before. You've asked questions of me, about me, about my likes and everything like that, but you haven't asked me for anything. And now, of course, I'm going to be more engaged and more likely to support you, because you not only identified the fact that I like, that I'm your target audience, but you've done it in a way that makes me feel engaged and connected to you. So I'm much more likely to support you, as opposed to, hey, you.
Staying on top of the conversation and getting back to people and being personal, the personal attention. I think we try to write everybody back. I mean, we really try to write everybody back.
That's great.
And usually that works out really well.
Usually. Yeah, it is hard because there's expectations, and we've dealt with it too.
Yeah. But I also feel like these people have been invested in the project because they gave money at the, when we were doing the Kickstarter, and the film has come out and it's done well and it got some positive reviews, and that then they feel a part of it, and it seems like people like the film too, thank goodness. But it's, then they tell their friends, because it's like, oh, I was a part of this.
Yeah.
I certainly know when I've been on the other side of the crowdfunding thing, it's been quite tempting to think, wow, I could be part of this movie. And the guy's not famous or anything, but maybe it'll be a successful movie and I'll have been part of it, or, so I think that's quite a strong element.
I try my hardest to try to stay connected online, wherever, with people that are really reaching out to me. I don't see why we shouldn't be. So it's kind of neat to see that sort of process happen, but it takes a ton of work. It's a combination of email. If you have an email database, you definitely got to be emailing, and usually that's really effective. Social media, times it works, times it doesn't. I spend a little bit of money with Facebook boosting some of my posts. I'm not afraid to do that. I know that I don't, appreciate the way that I sometimes feel like you get blocked out unless you spend money. But you gotta, it wasn't a huge amount of money for what I think the return was. Twitter, it's one of those hit and miss things. You gotta, just keep peppering it out there, and then I find, like, posting images, there's certain tricks of the social media, and you can look all those up to kind of try to get social media, like, impressions a little higher, and that's important. It's amazing how the sort of dorky things, like share this, you put share this on a image or something like that, maybe a little quote from Walter, and it just starts to go, like so many people share it. And I shouldn't discredit that. I appreciate people doing that, but it's like, it's funny because to me it feels sort of hokey and insincere, not authentic, and you sometimes wish those more authentic things would go.
And get the text as concise as possible, because when people open emails, they need to get to the decision-making point quickly, right? The emails that you wait to write until 2 in the morning always end up being the like long ones of why I got into film in the first place. And to be honest, basically nobody but your mom cares, right? So get to the most concise bullet points of like, why me, why this, why now, why you. Communicate that. Make sure that every time you send an email, it also includes immediately shareable Twitter and Facebook language that you have pre-composed, so you can turn me from my inbox to a social media evangelist with 2 clicks. Let's face it, most people are reading those kinds of emails while they're sitting on the toilet. They got one hand free. If you can help them share stuff with 2 clicks of a thumb, you're gonna get them to share stuff, right? So your direct outreach is really about getting people in their inboxes and also turning them into amplifiers, right? That's one phase of outreach. And usually there's like 3 categories of direct outreach for personal outreach. The first is the people you're basically sure are going to contribute to your campaign. Those like immediate friends and family who will support anything that you do. You're gonna reach out to them well in advance of launching your campaign. You're gonna tell them about what you're up to. You're gonna get them to commit to contributing. You're gonna find out how much they might be willing to contribute, so you have an idea of where you stand on day 1. That's really important. And if one of them says like, I'm in for $2,000, you're like, great. Can we run a matching campaign in the second week of our campaign to see if we can turn that $2,000 into $4,000 and incentivize people to get involved in the second week of the campaign so you can keep up your momentum? So you're gonna get a sense through your direct outreach of what you're gonna do on day 1, and maybe there's some options and opportunities in the second and third week of your campaign for bringing those larger contributors in a little later. There's the second set of people who you're like, maybe with a personal email, they will get involved. And you need to really look at how long is that list, and you gotta pool the resources of all of your filmmaking team. How long is this list? Because if it's 200 or 300 emails, you're not gonna send them all in one day. If you need to send 200 or 300 more or less personalized emails, that's part of the work that you're parsing out for yourself in the campaign. You're organizing, I'm gonna commit to sending 10 per day, right? Giving yourself something that you can stick to, as opposed to something you're gonna procrastinate on until the last week of your campaign, then you're gonna send a bunch of desperate emails that aren't very effective. They're gonna be those long diatribes. Horrible. And then the third category is kind of like everyone you've ever emailed ever that's accruing in your Gmail inbox, and you can create like a MailChimp list and just check in with people and make sure they wanna be subscribed to it, and then you can kind of blast them a couple times throughout the campaign, come what may. Right? That's a good way to start your mailing list there. And then any organizational outreach. So anybody who's willing to put you in their newsletter or send you out to stuff, you have to give them the materials they need to succeed as well. The organizational part in the outreach is the most important part. You need to be prepared in advance with not only how you're doing all your direct outreach, but how you're keeping your social media feed fresh.
You get a lot of people, like maybe like that like the page, or they just send us a message. Oh, we like the project, but they don't pledge. But we get a lot of them that like the project and stuff like that. So we reaching some of them. We're doing good so far. The time frame that we're on 5 days, so we're doing good so far.
It's really surprising that no one gets back to you. So I don't know what that is.
Interesting. Okay.
Friends or like?
Oh, friends. I mean, talking like newspapers, trying to get newspaper ads. You give people ideas. Do you want? You could do an article about this. You could do an article about that. Crowdfunding, local girl, horror movie, small movie, 50 other things.
Well, there's a lot of news in Chico, right. So they don't need your ideas for stories.
But we've gone inside and found someone who knows someone, so now we're trying that trying that out for size.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think having making contacts with media outlets beforehand really would have been helpful.
Yeah.
To try to sort of get some media exposure lined up before the campaign.
It is a race. Your crowdfunding is like a real amazing time where it's just like you can't think about anything other than getting the word out and like making an update video and posting new things and getting people interested and like trying to get film blogs to talk about it.
I think one of the really lucky things about our project is that we had sort of the tiny house community there, ready to kind of help us get the word out. And in the tiny house community, you know, there's a really vibrant online community of so many different blogs and Facebook pages and things like that. So I think, you know, before we launched the Kickstarter campaign, we really tried to reach out to editors of blogs and, you know, create personal relationships with people that, you know, could help us get the word out. And so that was one of the ways that we did that. And then also reaching out to, you know, anyone else that we thought kind of had a stake in the message that we're trying to get out there. So any kind of environmental blog, you know, design blogs, architecture blogs, you know, any other subject matter that was touched by this story, we reached out to. And we did a lot of, you know, for Film Courage as well, we did a lot of kind of guest blogs and, you know, making sure that we could provide great photos and great content to kind of offer to these people and say, you know, this is the story that we have going on. Use whatever you want, you know, and help us kind of get the word out there. And I think that helped a lot. We got, you know, we ended up getting picked up by, I think, Oprah.com and, you know, Mother Nature Network and a few bigger blogs that really helped us.
Sundance Channel blog and the Kickstarter blog actually was huge.
Your Twitter feed while you're crowdfunding can't now devolve into only self-promotional tweets. You need to keep up about a 9-to-1 ratio. And that means you still need to be in the conversation, the ideas around your film, maybe around filmmaking or around the topic of the film that you're making. You know, for Dear White People, for example, it's really easy. You can get into a lot of like interesting comedic takes on race or social justice. They have a sort of a clear conversation they can get involved in. Figuring out what that is and making sure you're still maintaining that takes a plan, right? You have to have either somebody who's doing it or somebody who's researching it, or you do a bunch of research in advance and you say, okay, I think these are the topics we're gonna really focus on each week. These are the audiences we're really gonna try to reach each week. We're gonna focus a lot on Twitter because we know we can reach our like young women interested in social justice there, but actually like if we really wanna get to like the filmmaker crowd, they're actually largely on Instagram, so we're gonna do this thing on Instagram for that audience. And then there's this sort of like baby boom generation who's very interested in, you know, seeing versions of themselves as children that they never got, movies that never got made when they were children, and sort of like this sort of nostalgic thing. And they're more reachable on Facebook, right? And so this is gonna be our campaign on Facebook. You've gotta have a plan for your social media to keep it fresh, keep it interesting. If you're tweeting the same shit in week 4 that you were in week 1, we are bored and probably have unfollowed you.
So I tell people I'm writing a book about crowdsourcing, they immediately think crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, of course, is, you know, getting people to donate to a project of, we're gonna keep it in film, to your film project. You set a goal, you go out and market yourself, you know, you set up a Kickstarter page, Indiegogo page, and you have people donate to the cause. Within crowdfunding, there is an element of crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is all about identifying a crowd, engaging a crowd, and moving a crowd. So for example, let's stay inside the realm of a crowdfunding campaign. One of the case studies I have in the book is a documentary called A Mile, Mile and a Half, okay? Mile, Mile and a Half was about 5 cinematographers and a sound editor who decided that they're all health enthusiasts as well. They decided that they were gonna hike the entirety of the John Muir Trail, which is like 206 miles, and film it and record it, like the different ecosystems, the whole entire thing, to show it in its natural beauty. Now, on the surface, that doesn't sound like a broad-based, like something that everybody and the mother's gonna wanna watch. But what they did, and this was 3 to 6 months before they even started the campaign, was they went out and they started engaging hikers, health enthusiasts, camera people, you know, people that were into camera equipment and sound equipment and things of that nature, cinematographers and things of that nature, filmmakers, and said, here's what we're looking to do. And started a campaign on Facebook and on Twitter and on the social media, and, you know, got people, for example, to, what's your favorite trail to hike? How long have you been hiking? Do you have any tricks of the trade when you're out hiking overnight? When you go camping, what do you do? Things of this nature. And they built a community. That's crowdsourcing, okay? They identified a crowd and they started engaging the crowd. By the time that they were ready to go hike and then, you know, even start this campaign, and they were going for an $85,000 raise, which is a lot of money, right? Especially for a documentary. and this kind of documentary. They had already had about 40,000 followers on Twitter, or likes on Twitter, on Facebook, I'm sorry, however many on Twitter. And they had engaged all sorts of bloggers who wrote about hiking, bloggers who wrote about the outdoors, so on and so forth. All of a sudden, some of these people went to outdoor gear companies and said, hey, you should check out what these guys are doing. And all of a sudden, they were getting gear donated to them, camera equipment donated to them. All this stuff started happening before they even thought about putting the campaign live. That's crowdsourcing. That's the first 2 steps of crowdsourcing: identifying the crowd, engaging the crowd, asking them questions, getting them involved, getting them engaged. They were posting videos all the time about what they planned to do on the trail, pictures from the trail, that other people had taken. They got people who had already hiked the trail to put up their videos and stuff like that. When the time came for them to start promoting the Kickstarter campaign, they went to the crowd and they said, okay, we're ready. Now we're going to ask, would you support this project? The money came flowing in. Okay, everybody wanted to be involved because they had taken the time to identify and engage, and now they were asking them to move. So it's all about, that's exactly what crowdsourcing is. And you could do that for anything when it comes to a film. You could do that for locations, you could do it for characters. I'm doing this film, and this is the subject of the film, and maybe the subject of the film is, children with autism. So you go to a group and you say, this is what the film is about. This is what my character is about. Who would like to name the character? These are the names that we've come up with for the main character. Vote for it. And now all of a sudden there's an engagement. There's an involvement. That's crowdsourcing.
And your updates. Every crowdfunding platform has an update function. It's kind of like a blog. But let me be clear, people don't contribute to crowdfunding campaigns to just subscribe to blogs. The point of your updates is to show progress, to demonstrate further inevitability of success, to keep up the momentum, to bring people deeper into your world, and the content should be visual and shareable in exciting ways. You have to make your updates easily shareable, whether you're using click-to-tweet or you're pre-composing shareable language. All the time, everything that you're doing should increase the virality of your campaign, the shareability. Virality is dumb because you can't predict virality. All you can do is try to increase your chances to achieve it.
I really like the updates where it's here's an update. An update's sort of like a blog post, right? If you're interested in the project and you're kind of following along, it's sort of like, here's the newest news, here's the info. Doing updates is pretty important because what it does is it makes the people that did contribute feel good about their contribution, and then it's sort of like, oh yeah, it's a reminder. And if you're still in the process of raising funds, it's like a reminder so that those people can share it with their friends. So it's sort of like, you want to be active with it. And I remember with Similo, we had dozens and dozens and dozens of updates. Here's the newest news. Hey, we were on this blog. Hey, we have an update. Hey, we're in Spain. We're doing this thing. Here's another behind the scenes photo. You're kind of adding to the story where it's not just your pitch video.
Not having a good pitch video to me, I feel like is the ones I've seen, I'm like, I would never donate to that because the video wasn't good, whether it was the production value or just the pitch wasn't good. I just didn't feel like it was a compelling enough story or that kind of stuff.
If you have a really fantastic crowdfunding video and it's pulling at people's heartstrings, the only reason they're not contributing, well, I'll say this. Number one is maybe that's a fantastic pitch video by someone's standards, but not by the standards of the audience that are actually there for the movie. So there's that piece. But if it really is an exceptional crowdfunding video, I've never seen an exceptional crowdfunding video. No, one time I did. Actually, one time on SEED&SPARK, probably still the best crowdfunding video I've ever seen in my life. And the campaign went nowhere, and that's because they did zero outreach and nobody saw it, right? So you can't just make an excellent crowdfunding video and put it on a website and hope that somebody sees it.
You found a great one.
I found this great project that I backed, and I tweeted about it, and I went back a couple of days later and they didn't have any more backers. And I went back a couple of weeks later and they didn't have any more backers. And I was like, that means to me that they didn't even put in the effort to con their friends into backing their project, which means that maybe they should look into how crowdfunding works some more and try again.
I think there's projects that I thought were going to get funded because they're so inspiring and they're so magical. And you know, this photographer person wanted to put together this amazing travel blog about different photography things, and it was just like really interesting to me. I put in my $10, but you know, she needed like 200 people to do that, and it didn't quite catch on fire. And you wonder, like, well, how do these catch on fire? What leads something to be okay? We made 100% of our goal. Sometimes you're just shocked and you're like, what happened?
It's almost a full-time job.
Yeah. There's a lot of refreshing of the web page.
This is our second
Did
Kickstarter.
anyone else?
Yeah, and our first one was definitely a full-time job, and so is this one. It's really hard, and you have to do a lot of research, and you have to do a lot of contacting people and blogs and you know, newspapers and things that aren't ever going to contact you back, but you have to contact them anyway. And
just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult, and you have to have a base to start with too. I read somewhere that, you know, your number of Facebook friends is directly proportional to how well your Kickstarter does, and Facebook is definitely the #1 source for our pledges. So yeah, since last year, Kickstarter put in a great new dashboard, and you can see where everything's coming from. So that's a great time waster too, because you can look at that and be like, oh, you know, 37% from Twitter. I better tweet more. So
right. Mostly it's just trying to get the word out and trying to get people to repost it, retweet, and that sort of thing. Because it's really eyeballs, getting eyeballs on the project, on the video. Because if they like the video,
well, definitely the quality of the video. I mean, everyone says that. You know, is it framed correctly? Like filmmaking 101, that a lot of people, you know, here they're asking for money to make a movie, but their Kickstarter video doesn't have proper framing. The framing is weird, or you know, they don't have good sound or good audio, or the edits aren't smooth, or they only have one angle. They don't decide to cover it from multiple angles. Stuff like that, and sort of a vision. I get a sense of what they're trying to do and why they build up a compelling reason as to why I should why I should be part of it. And I think a lot of it has to do with sort of a vision, the style of the video. I think that's a big part of it, you know. Does it feel like its own little thing in its own? Does it have a beginning, a middle, and an end? You know, is it, you know, do they have a visual sense of telling a story? Because a Kickstarter video is a story. You know, you're telling a story in 3 minutes as to who you are, what you need, what you've done. If they can do that, then I see a lot of Kickstarter videos that aren't stories. They don't have an arc, and that's what I try to do in my campaign a little bit. And I'm realizing I could have done things better, but.
So in a nutshell, then, good crowdfunders script their crowdfunding videos.
Oh, I did. I had I scripted mine weeks in advance, man. I mean, I was walking in like I was an actor almost. Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't going to wing it. Mm-hmm. And I had a script girl on the other side who was helping me with, hey, you missed this point, or you missed this, and wow. I didn't trust myself as far as making sure, because you have like 3 pages of text to get through, of dialogue.
We've put a couple months in on the video, and part of it, one thing I recognized with Kickstarter that was very, very clear, is that you have to have the personal touch. It's the person, the individual saying, hi, this is who I am, I really would like your help. It's usually one person, whether it's Double Fine or Amanda Palmer, it's usually the one-on-one. And fortunately, I was a commentator on Morning Edition for 3 years, long ago, and I've done a lot of media interviews, and so I'm very comfortable with that, and I think that helped. But also, in my campaign, it was me as a person, but it was also, this is the body of work I've done, and then the third part is, this is the team I've assembled, and it's an amazing team, and then it was the special effect shots that we were generating fresh, saying this is what we're doing is going to look like. So it wasn't just, you can look at our work from the past, but there's no telling what we're going to do now. Here's something very concrete that we generated new, specific to this project, and that was very important, because otherwise, people are going to be dubious. But if you say, okay, look at this. If you like this, if you like these effect shots, if you like these actors who we're going to be casting, then you get a pretty good idea about what we're up to.
number one, the most important thing is to start from a place of passion. I think I would not have had a successful Kickstarter campaign. We wouldn't have had a successful Kickstarter campaign if we weren't truly 100% passionate about the film. Because your passion, I think, will come through in any type of promotion you do. Video, to me, seems like the biggest no-brainer of all time for filmmakers. But a lot of filmmakers, for whatever reason, either they're gun-shy about getting on camera, or they don't want to come off as, arrogant or pompous, or what all the typical ways that people like to think of crazy filmmakers. The truth is, if you care enough about your project to sweat blood and tears to get it done, you should care enough to tell people why. And I think that if you start from a place of honesty and passion in however you're communicating, you'll already be ahead of the pack. I think the mistake that I see a lot of indie filmmakers make when they start making some sort of tape is that they'll try to maybe like ape or copy a different campaign that was successful. But that may be completely inappropriate for what it is they're doing, and more often than not, you watch a filmmaker and you go, "Who cares?" I don't care. And I bet you a lot of the filmmakers, when they watch that own tape, they probably don't. It probably doesn't move them. But I think if you start from a place of honesty and you create something that's as real as the movie you made in the first place, something as personal and cool and quirky and interesting as your own work, people are going to respond. And I mean, listen, I'm a big sap. But when I watch our Kickstarter video, I still tear up. And, yes, part of it is because I have to admit that I look that goofy on camera, but part of it is because I really do it. The journey meant so much to us that it was impossible not to be passionate when we talked about it. So I think my first tip would be start from a place of honesty and passion.
What's your second tip?
I'm getting it in order. Oh. I know what it is. I know what my second tip is, but go ahead. I thought you might want to expand.
Expand on the passion? No, I absolutely agree. We're working with some filmmakers now who are doing a documentary called Journey Through Fire, and they actually came and one of the video things that they're doing, which I thought was really nice, is they're talking to different filmmakers and having them almost pitch the film. Where, what is it that inspired them about the film, or what is it that inspires them about the project, which I think, again, to the passion, that it's not just a filmmaker's passion, but to show that the film has inspired a passionate response in others, I think definitely helps in terms of having, testimonials, within the pitch video, which is not something we did. But I saw them doing it just recently.
We did different kinds of testimonials.
Right, yeah. But for them, it really. They're still in the editing process. They don't have their film finished yet. We saw rough cuts and little bits and pieces, and found out about the stories and all of that. But again, it's speaking to the passion. It's just, what's your passion? If I'm an audience member and you're the filmmaker, of course you're passionate about your project. But to see somebody else get passionate about your project who's not necessarily connected to it in any way, that's intriguing. And then I go, what is in your project that sparks their passion? Then that may also then spark mine.
And I think one idea that you're hitting on there that I do think is important, if you're lucky enough to have it, is social proof. Basically proof that there is a love of your project outside your own love. Because of course you love it, or you wouldn't have, spent all your money and all your time making it. We were so lucky that when we played our initial festivals, that we were not only winning, but we were getting standing ovations, and we brought cameras with us to the screenings in hopes of gathering some type of audience reaction. It far exceeded our expectations, but being able to show people our film is receiving one standing ovation after another, and people in the lobby are unable to contain themselves, and they're crying and talking about the film, and this is what real people are saying about the movie, I think lent a lot of credibility, and it also made people feel good about supporting the film, whether it was donating or watching or deciding to buy a ticket. It's like, well, there's other people in the world are being moved by this movie. That not only says to me that it's good, it also says to me this is something I want to be a part of. Am I missing out by not seeing this film? Is it, would my life, maybe be touched like that person's life was touched if I took the time to go see it? Or not all movies need to be touching. It could be a comedy. Am I going to have that much fun at the movies? Is it worth me going to escape for a few hours? So I do think that if you can hint at social proof in any kind of pitch you do for anything, just proving that there's a more universal attractiveness to your project, I do think that'll help. The next point that I think is really important, and I think this speaks to, again, it doesn't matter if you're making a movie, if you're selling widgets, if you're trying to book to give speeches, whatever. I think you have to know your audience. It's really important to know that audience and to speak to them. And I don't think that necessarily mean, a lot of people will go, oh, well, who's your audience? And then they'll automatically start breaking it down into demographics. I don't think that necessarily works as well for independent filmmakers. I mean, yes, it's important to know in general, this movie is going to appeal to men more than women or vice versa. But a lot of times indie filmmakers fall into this weird in-between place because we're making something that's different and it doesn't necessarily fit one specific mold. So I think you want to figure out how to appeal to certain pieces of everybody. I mean, I think we all have, in the case of Dying to Do Letterman, I think we all have an underdog spirit. No matter who you are, no matter if you're a man or woman, no matter what age you are, all of us at some point in our lives have been the underdog or rooted for an underdog. And that was something we worked really hard to tap into when we reached out. And that was not only reflected in our video, which very clearly said, no one wanted us to make this movie, which was true. People said it was a horrible idea to shoot the film. People thought we were crazy to invest our money in it. I mean, we were underdogs. Steve's story is a major underdog story. So by saying to people, look, we're underdogs, be part of our underdog story, I think that helped them relate to the movie. I think if you can find something that's universal in your film and think of that as your demographic. What's my demographic? It's underdogs. We all have a little piece of the underdog in us. So in a way, it makes it easier to focus your message, like you're tapping into that essence as opposed to I'm just going for the 18 to 39-year-old male, which probably, if you're an independent filmmaker, you probably don't fit a category quite so sharply, unless you set out to make a commercial film, which is a whole different business plan altogether. So,
one we applaud.
What's that?
One worth of plot.
I listen. I think yes. Well, that's a whole side note. I think unfortunately, a lot of independent filmmakers get lumped into, well, you can only make one kind of movie, which is not true. An independent filmmaker is a person that goes and makes a movie with their own money because no one else will pay for it. I think that if someone went out and they did their independent version of Armageddon, God bless them. I'd support them 100%. I do think there's a bias against young aspiring filmmakers who tend to make stuff that appeals to the masses as opposed to niche audiences. So for the record, I completely support anybody and applaud anybody who has the gumption to finish a movie. And if your movie happens to be Armageddon or a horror movie or a comedy and it doesn't fit your typical, festival model, I don't think people should care. I think you should be applauded for finishing your film in the first place. So that's a whole rant for another day.
And how important was it for you to make it personal? Because I like how you talk about in your Kickstarter video, Alton, Illinois, and you talk about the different, I think it was the world's tallest man.
Yeah, Miles Davis.
Yeah, exactly. So you personalize it, you let us get to know who you are, where you're from.
Right.
How important was that?
That was extremely important because I go back to Alton, I had take a lot of pride in the community. But I think a big thing was that I'm a big advocate of Midwest filmmakers and Midwest artists, and to say, hey, I'm from Alton, you never heard of Alton, this is what Alton is known for, and I really want the community of Alton to come out and support the Kickstarter campaign. There's 30,000 people live in Alton and all the peripheral cities, East Alton and Bethalto and Godfrey, all these, it's the River Bend community. And I want to get the River Bend community behind in the buck. And I'm struggling to do that because not enough people know about it. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that crowdfunding, while it's popular to people like us who are involved in social media, you go to the middle of America, you say the word Kickstarter, they think you're talking about a part on a motorcycle or something. They don't, people that live in LA and New York and even Chicago, we're all isolated in all this social media. Really, we're in a bubble compared to middle America. So I think I'm trying to penetrate that sense of what it means, and they're just not familiar enough. So that's been my major obstacle. I think if I was from a bigger city, it would be different.
It's way too long. Always that's the problem. You know, people have such a short attention span. You got to sell this thing in 2 minutes. You know, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I mean, this video is probably the longest video out there on Kickstarter, but I don't care. I just feel it just conveys the journey and the emotion. And, you know, and it's designed, I hope, in a way where after 2 minutes people can get it. And if they don't want to watch the whole thing, they can just stop and still, you know, get what the whole story is about.
I don't know who wrote the handbook and disseminated it behind my back that says the first thing that happens in a crowdfunding pitch video is you should sit in front of the camera and talk at people. Like, we are in a visual medium, and we're always told in our scripts and in our films to show, not tell, and then we do a crowdfunding pitch video and all we do is tell. So here's my favorite crowdfunding pitch video blooper, right? Hi, my name is Emily Best. I'm gonna actually do it this way. Hi, my name is Emily Best, and if this were really one, I would have bad sound right now. So I have lousy sound. Hi, my name is Emily Best. I'm the writer, director, lead actor, and producer of Danger in Downtown LA. Danger in Downtown LA is a terrifying thriller starring me, a woman. That's like not totally typical. And we have this incredible script and this amazing cast of people who you will meet and talk to in a minute. But I really want you to get a sense of like what the film is gonna feel like. So here's our cinematographer who's going to talk to you about why this is going to be a good film. And then you're gonna talk to the cinematographer for a little bit, and then you'll talk to a couple of the actors, and then you'll come back and they'll be like, so, you know, we're totally broke, you know, indie filmmaking, we don't have any money, we really need your money, that's the most important thing that we could ask of you, so donate now. And thanks, bye, we're gonna make a really scary film for you.
I've seen that video.
We've all seen this video, and they're like, I think it's good. I'm like, by what standard? If your movie is, okay, I have so many things to say about it. First, if you put nothing else on the internet, put this on the internet. Do not ask for help with a donation. Because by and large, unless you are backed by a 501c3, asking for a donation is factually incorrect, right? The tone of your campaign should be asking someone to join what you are offering with a contribution. That means you are making a contribution and they are making a contribution, and together you're going to make something magnificent, okay? That tone has to permeate everything in your crowdfunding campaign. I am offering you such a kick-ass opportunity to join this thing that's gonna be so exciting. Strap on your seatbelts, this rocket is taking off, let's do this together. Like, you be the fuel, I'll be the rocket and you be the fuel, right? That's kind of what we're talking about. So the first thing is, if you are going to make a film, let's say called Danger in Downtown LA, I don't know if that film exists, but I'm making one up for these purposes. For no money at all, you could take this lovely Canon 5D or even your iPhone and make it feel found footage-y. And now this neighborhood gets very dark at night and the lighting is very weird. And now I'm over the shoulder of a woman, I can tell because her breathing is deep. And we're walking down and it's an alleyway and it's kind of unsteady. And you hear something and it seems like maybe somebody's just run behind you, and you turn around and there's nothing there. And then you turn back and the music kind of comes in. You can find tons of free, creepy music out there. If you have a friend with a keyboard, they can create something for you. And then all of a sudden there's a crash and a smash, and the woman and the camera are down on the ground and the breathing is heavy and you don't know what happens, and hi, my name is Emily Best. That was the first little snippet of Danger in Downtown LA. We have an incredible cast and crew lined up. I want to show you first what our cinematographer is capable of. And then you spend, 12 or 15 seconds with all of the cool other stuff that your cinematographer has done, and maybe a cut of a few things that your actors have been in, if you don't have time to shoot something sort of native. There is, the whole point is that if you're going to make a small movie, a pitch video, 90 seconds usually, about why somebody should get involved with this much longer movie you're proposing to make. Your small movie has to be good and in the tone and demonstrate that you are capable of making the thing that you are promising on the long run. And if you can't make a 90-second video basically for free that gets people super excited, maybe you shouldn't be making the longer movie. Sorry.
I don't feel that just a pitch video is enough. I feel that people are buying not just a reward like a DVD or a t-shirt or a chance for a signed script or something. They're trying to become a part of a process that they normally wouldn't be. So invite them along on that journey. Like, you know, show them where you're coming from, where you want to go, like the good things, the bad things that happen. So keep them in the loop.
And I think too, the message with, you know, Kickstarter, it's not necessarily so much, you know, asking for money. It's more about like, look at this great thing we're doing that you can be a part of. And so I think it's really kind of tapping into that inspiration factor. And, you know, as much as people can kind of do that, I think it will be successful.
Any good crowdfunding campaign should have a 3 to 6 month, you know, launch or ramp up, I should say, before you launch. But it's approach. You see, when again we go back to that idea of hey you, as opposed to would you, you know, would you like to be involved in this? Can I give you ownership of kind of what we're doing? Can I make you feel like you're a part of it?
Crowdfunding is moving away from a merchandise platform to an experiential platform. And to me, in a sense, it's not, what's key in that is that it's a scarcity platform, in a sense, that you're selling scarcity. And that in the world of digital, of a world of abundance, is what it becomes valuable is what is scarce. And so certain kinds of merchandise are scarce and you can make them scarce, and those have a chance of doing well so long as you are smart about like making something that your audience wants. But you are also smart to create experiences. And who was I just talking to about their campaign? Yeah, I was talking to a filmmaker who was actually in the A2E Summit, so it was my pre-consultation with them. And they have a band involved in the film. And I think what's really interesting is that you can create these different levels of experiences, again, from the music model, and value those and allow consumers to engage at the level that they want to engage in or are able to engage in. And that, you know, you'll have some really high-end rewards, a super VIP package that only certain people will be able to afford. But what crowdfunding allows you to do is to engage in those tiers. And so you can still create a smaller end package where someone can come to, you know, get a standard VIP pass, come to a screening, go backstage, you know, and meet the band for however long. But then you can do a super VIP package where they actually have dinner with the band and filmmakers before or after the screening. You know, why not? You know, and I think these are all just, I think we're still in a kind of experimental mode of how this new form of engagement and financing and marketing is all going to work. And I don't think it's right for anyone to say some people can come to the party and others can't.
We also waited to put out our trailer until the Kickstarter campaign started. So, you know, on Facebook we said, our trailer's finally here, you know, click through to Kickstarter to see it.
I forgot we did that.
You know, so that was great because people wanted to see the trailer, and then they were at the Kickstarter site, and that worked well, I think, for us.
We researched a lot of campaigns. We probably looked at about 100 different campaigns. We watched all their videos. We looked at their rewards, their perk structure, all the text on the actual Kickstarter page, and you know, a lot of it came down to kind of what felt good to us, and we kind of went with our gut as far as a viewer, as an audience member, as a fan, what do we want to read on these pages and what kinds of perks would get us excited. So along the way, we're just constantly telling ourselves, let's put ourselves in their shoes. What do they want to see? What do they need to know? What will excite them? And so that helped a lot.
I think it's hard to tell. I think that in certain types of projects, there are things that you can do, such as, you know, if it's Filmmaker, you can look at their previous works, you can see what the quality of the work is, you can see if it's gone to festivals, who's in it, who the producers are. There's that type of homework you can do to see whether this person is legitimate or not. That being said, that has no bearing on whether they'll be able to deliver this current product. And
that's something, and you know, I donated to a short film project, and the director had like amazing credentials, and that's why I donated, because I thought that they would be able to follow through. And they were supposed to have sent out DVDs. The film was completed. They were supposed to send out DVDs in May, and there has not been a single update on this project since May. And I think, again, this is the case of the filmmaker like having some kind of problem and not wanting to tell people about it, but the longer it goes without them communicating, the more people are like, what are you doing, and getting upset, and that makes me more hesitant to donate to the next short film project. Then again, you know, you have to kind of view it with the Zen mentality of if you know, you're giving an average donation, which tends to be between $25 and $50, you know, you're putting it out there in the hopes that you're going to get something back, but you have to be realistic in the fact that people don't deliver, and that's a risk that you are taking when you decide to give your money away.
You're on the hook. You're on the hook for those obligations, for the things that you're promising people. So we promised people t-shirts, so we got to make the t-shirts. We promised people to film, so we got to finish the film. I think it comes down to like the honesty of the whole idea. The idea is that, hey, if you give me this, I'm going to give you that. Or, hey, there's this thing that we want to do, and if you champion the idea and enough people do, then we possibly could do it. And some crowdfunding campaigns make it totally apparent that it's like, this might not happen. Like, don't be let down if we end up like not having this, but this is what we want to do. And I think it's the way you pitch it. If you tell people like, maybe it's not going to work out, then you don't feel so bad when it doesn't. But if you're like, this is going to happen, then you kind of got to follow through.
Just like anything else, any other business arrangement you go into, you can search, you know, look up people online, do that kind of thing. You can also ask them questions.
Yeah.
I mean, Kickstarter is a lot about the personal connection. If you are concerned that their goal is not high enough to really create the product, you can message them and say, okay, do you have any other funding sources? Or something like that, because a lot of people do. A lot of people on Kickstarter do have other funding sources outside of Kickstarter, and things like that. And do your own homework. And if you don't trust the answers that you're getting, you shouldn't, you know, back that project.
Yeah, I mean, you're not obligated to sponsor somebody else's thing, and I think, you know, it comes down to voting with your dollar, and as more people view it that way, it's going to be the more legitimate projects that rise to the top. But then again, the creator could get hit by a bus. You know, there's no guarantees. And I don't think that, you know, it may be hard for it to continue to work the way that it works now if there are guarantees put in place.
I've seen people get frustrated at different projects that didn't deliver what they promised. And if you donate $10 and they don't do what they promised, it's another thing. But if you donate, you know, 1,000 or more, you know, you want them to deliver the promise. And that's part of the ethos of the whole crowdfunding thing, is if enough people are keeping their word, then it's like a you know, a viable system for raising funds for art projects.
One thing that was a constant thorn in our side with the last crowdfunding campaign was this photo book, this elusive photo book that we promised backers. And it seemed like a really cool idea because we had a photographer on set on every shoot that we took in Haiti. And so we had these gorgeous photographs, and we thought, cool, let's do a photo book. How hard could it possibly be? You know, it was expensive. It took just so much time to design it. And it was just way more work and money than we anticipated, and it became a pretty big problem for us here in the office, just trying to get that done on time. And it ended up being, several months late, but people were happy when it finally came.
So one thing that we did that maybe I would do differently next time is just our rewards. We didn't anticipate how many people would be donating, and so some of our rewards took so much time or energy to fulfill that. And for us it was okay because we were still a relatively small project and campaign, but for some of the larger films out there, they could find that they spend hours, just fulfilling days, fulfilling Kickstarter rewards, so it's just something to keep in mind for filmmakers, I think.
A lot of people have said that you should email your social friends before you start the campaign and ask them to help you, and I think that's a really good idea and something we didn't do.
Right. And like we said before, not having a lot of stuff
prepared beforehand just because of the time crunch that we are under. So we would have loved to have had some video updates sort of pre-shot and edited and ready to go, so that we could just, every Monday we do like a video from a different person or whatever.
Sometimes you get discouraged. Wow, I just sent in like 1,000 emails. It's still not moving. You know what I mean? And then, oh yeah, somebody plays. I'm like, okay, we're good. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
I mean, there's so much work going on between the Kickstarter campaign and then the other fundraising that we're doing for this project, just with investors and whatnot, that I don't even have time to create a proper checklist. You know, every day we come in, it's just kind of a mad scramble to kind of do what needs to get done. We know we need to update people. We know we need to kind of check to see where we're at with Kickstarter. I'm a little obsessive about it, and I check maybe every hour or so, maybe sometimes more. And so, you know, the obvious things are, you know, making sure we're tweeting it out at least once or twice a day and not doing it in an annoying, in-your-face kind of way. Same with the Facebook updates, and, you know, Facebook and Twitter alone, there's multiple accounts that we're managing between like the company's Twitter account and the film's account. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of just social media, building graphics that we know we'll need either that day or down the road. So yeah, just kind of a roundabout answer, saying that we don't know what we're doing half the time and just kind of doing as much as we possibly can to get the word out every day.
So basically we reached out to a few select people, and then about 2 weeks before presenting it, we tried to reach out to bloggers and to press as much as we could in our own, you know, humble way without a publicist. So we tried to find them on LinkedIn, on other blogs, you know, we tried to build up. But I'm told that I didn't do it the right way. You know? I'm told that I should have had 1 million Twitter followers already before I launched, you know, but...
Do tell, I want to hear what advice did people give you, and what did you say, well, I'm just going to throw caution to the wind.
You know, it seems that to have a successful Kickstarter campaign, you need like either a celebrity or some kind of a huge network.
Some foundation.
Yeah, that's already behind you right from the beginning. And you know, I don't think I had that, and I don't think I have that, but I'm building it slowly as we go along, and that's why, you know, we're going for a longer campaign of 60 days. Usually they recommend just do it in 30 days, you know, or you'll get people really upset, or, you know, but I'm using it, the first half of this campaign, as a way to slowly to reach out and let the, you know, more and more people know about it, and hopefully the second half will be the real campaign.
Everybody's trying to get a little bit of extra publicity. There's no guaranteed publicity. Do you know what I mean? Publicity is made by people. It's the journalists that if they're interested, how do you get them interested? You know, these folks are overworked and they're trying to get stuff in for a deadline, and they're trying to look for the idea, and they want to please their editor.
Yeah, whenever there was sort of a lull, it would be like, okay, you know, I remember before we started the project or the campaign, I wrote down a list of every single blog or, you know, mailing list or newsletter or personal contact. I mean, down to like the colleges that we went to, just like the alumni networks. I mean, any community that I could think of to reach out to, and was kind of just crossing them off the list. So if, you know, whenever we hit a lull, I was kind of like, okay, so what new blog can I write? Or, you know, it's helpful because my background is in writing, so it was easy for me to kind of like figure out a new angle and write a blog, but you know, it was kind of just like, okay, what else can I put out there just to keep putting stuff out?
Yeah, I think definitely the plan about, you know, having a regular sort of schedule of blogs. So even if we knew that in advance that there would be 4 or 5 blogs that we're already willing to either write about us or let us do a guest blog, we would, you know, say, okay, well, can we do it this day, because we didn't want to have 5 come out in one day and then have a week where there wasn't any, so we tried to pace it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, you know, it's important to remember too that it's great to, you know, start small. I mean, a lot of the press coverage that we got, you know, started off being really small kind of local blogs and newsletters that, you know, someone would see it and be like, oh, that's cool, and then they'd write about it for their thing, and it kind of got, you know, the reach became greater and greater, but we started pretty small. And I think, you know, it's not like you need to have a contact with the New York Times in order to, you know, make a successful campaign. You can start with who you know.
Well, for our last Kickstarter, we were very lucky to get a lot of blog attention, and that definitely was what. Yeah, every time we were featured on a new blog like Boing Boing or Nerdist or Laughing Squid, Gizmodo.
Laughing Squid. It would just surge because it was eyeballs on it that hadn't seen it before, and that people were excited about the idea, and it also had the legitimacy of an outside source saying, "Hey, look at this thing," as opposed to
the person themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, look at me over here. So that really helped. And in terms of not having the same sort of media attention, having Barry Bostwick retweet or he doesn't have a Twitter, but Facebooking, sharing the video that he did really helped.
Neil Gaiman shared it, which was helpful.
Yep.
Simon Helberg, who's in the movie, shared it, which is helpful. And just having anyone share it is helpful.
Anyone with reach. We had a little article in the Nerdist today,
and there's a definite little
and there's
bump.
been a bump today that really went along with that. We were featured, and we did an interview on the Nerdist on Friday that landed, and that gave us a little bit of a bump as well. So it's just about getting the word out and people hearing your message and hopefully liking what you have to say.
Well, what sounds good in theory, but then it actually didn't work too well?
Well, I'll look at the Kickstarter and, oh gosh, there hasn't been a pledge for 4 hours, and I'll go and do a lot of social media and nothing happens. So it's really hard to know what does
What's
work.
working, yeah.
What else doesn't work?
What else doesn't work?
Oh, I sent an email to every single person that is on my Facebook from my hometown. And people just don't read Facebook messages is part of it, but I think I got one response. So that, people say personal appeals, but I think emails may be better than Facebook messages.
Right.
Phone calls?
Phone calls,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Text messages.
Yeah.
Explaining to your grandmother how to open her email so she can share it with her friends.
Right.
We came up with 33,000 as the goal, in part because we had to be realistic with what we could raise, given our network, given our history with crowdfunding. Like, I just wanted to make sure we're being realistic and not overshooting it, because as we all know, Kickstarter is all or nothing, and we don't want to lose out. So that was one consideration. The other consideration was, what will be enough to get the ball rolling on the film? What's enough to develop the project fully, and what's enough to kind of just start the production process? And 33,000 was kind of the magic number. Oh, and the other element, of course, is factoring in the cost to produce the perks and the rewards and whatnot for backers. And so, yeah, 33,000 was the magic number to get the ball rolling on the project and what we realistically thought we could raise.
What's kind of funny is that we spent a lot of time discussing the rewards and what the different levels would be other than the camera, because we weren't sure going in that people would buy up all the cameras, because it's a significant investment on a Kickstarter level. Most campaigns, the average donation is much smaller than in our campaign. We have one of the highest average donations of any Kickstarter campaign. I think it was something like $700 was the average.
I think as a reward level, that the $2,500 reward level being the highest number of rewards or close to it that we have, I think that had not been done before on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
There had been a lot of things that made more money overall, but the actual reward level was very high.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just sort of funny because, we spent a lot of time arguing, whether t-shirts should be 40 or 35, but really at the end of the day, what it came down to was whether people wanted the cameras or not. Like, the smaller things, we appreciate people's support, but we sort of gamed our campaign in that we will make our goal if we sell out of cameras. And we're only selling 100, so if we don't sell out, then there sort of really can't be that much of a market for the product to begin with. And so we kind of, you can never know going in whether something's going to be successful or not in that way. I don't think we anticipated that it would go as fast as it did. We anticipated having to spend the whole month actually, working to get people's attention, and that didn't happen because, by the time we launched it, like on Monday afternoon, I think, and then by Tuesday morning when we came in, the original goal was already met, and at the end of that day, all the cameras were sold out. So it went very quickly, and I think that that's something that is unique to our campaign, but doesn't have to be. You know, we were creating, you know, mathematically a model that would mean if people bought enough of the product, then we would meet the goal and actually have the ability to produce that. I think one of the smarter things that we did was cap the product. You know, it's very flashy now to get millions of dollars on Kickstarter, but the thing is, if you're trying to raise 10,000 or even 100,000 and you make 10 million, your business has changed significantly. You know, there's taxes involved, there's different manufacturing costs involved, there's a whole, you know, hundreds of thousands of customers that instead of 100 customers that you have to deliver to. You know, one of the reasons we've been able to have personal relationships with our backers is because we had a much smaller number of backers, and you know, people were upset that we didn't add more cameras, but we wanted to make sure that it was a small group, that we would be able to deliver, that it wasn't going to become out of control. And a lot of the other tech projects that are out there have gotten out of control, and that's why they're having problems with delivering, you know, because they anticipated barely making their goal, ended up making millions, and were not ready for this. And I think that when you're planning a Kickstarter campaign, you really have to look through all of these possible outcomes, and you have to understand, you know, if I make this much money on Kickstarter, this is what it translates into business-wise. And you know, Kickstarter is a great thing, but I think that there's very little accountability in who can put up a Kickstarter and what sort of business strategy or any kind of pre-planning they've had to do in order to put that Kickstarter up. And I think that some people just get massively overwhelmed because they don't know what they're in for.
We asked for $15,000 and we got it. But I gotta tell you, that was hard money to raise. I think everybody has this notion that you go on Indiegogo and there's hundreds of people out there who want to fund films, and no, mostly it's your friends and their friends, and it's intense work. And then you have to give gifts to everybody, you know, everybody does it for perks, and so it's very intensive. So.
Did it almost feel like a full-time job?
It was a full-time job.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, the Indiegogo campaign took us 3 months to fulfill everything and to, you know, to raise all the money and then fulfill all the obligations that we had promised. We had promised people T-shirts and posters and things like that, and then we had to mail all that out. It was very intensive.
So do you remember what you did on a daily basis during the actual live campaign? Was it again more emails to people and sharing the link?
Emails, phone calls. I had a lot of lunches. I met with a lot of people who were interested but wanted to kind of have a personal contact. It's a very personal business, fundraising for something like this. And you never know who's going to lead you to somebody else, you know. You have drinks with somebody and you think they're going to give you $10,000 and they never come through with anything, and then 3 months later they send a friend your way who gives you $10,000. So it's not a direct science, that's for sure.
It's funny that I talk about this since our budget was 160,000 euros, which is more than $1 million. And you know, right now that we achieved it, and that we got to make the film with that budget, I wouldn't recommend anyone to try to get that amount of money through crowdfunding. That's my advice. I mean, if I talk to myself 3 years ago, you know, I was confident enough, and we achieved it, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's really difficult, and I don't think crowdfunding is ready yet for that kind of amounts. I think for short films and books and albums and any other thing that is below 30,000, it's great. Over that, you're gonna have a hard time. You might be lucky, but you know, one out of 1,000 is gonna be successful and the rest is gonna fail. So maybe it's smarter to just start smaller and get a part to make a trailer, or I don't know, to build the community before, then get some money from a different place, and then I don't know. I mean, there's a million things to do it, but most of the projects that are asking for a lot of money, they are being a failure.
The guy really misunderstood what it was going to take to make his electronics project, his technology project, and he made just barely over his goal, and he has now sold his his investments and put all of his life savings into the project on top of that money, and is still probably not going to be able to deliver it, and it's kind of ruined him financially, and it's a problem that Kickstarter is not like a bank. They don't ask you for your business plan. They don't ask you for your market research. They don't ask you for any of that kind of stuff. They leave all that up to you, which is a little dangerous for investing. And as investors or as backers, it's a little dangerous for backers.
The Kickstarters where people end up just sort of begging for money, even though we feel like we're begging for money sometimes, are those ones where they don't really have very good incentives, like, we're making a book. If you give $200, you get a copy of the book. And so,
sell the thing for how much it's going to cost.
If I wait until the book is out, I can buy it for $25 or whatever it is. Yeah. So we look at it as and actually trying to make it so they're getting more for their money than if they waited for when it comes out. So, for $25 for our current one, they get a copy of the movie, they get a digital copy of the movie, they get a Kickstarter exclusive audio commentary, invitation to after parties and stuff. So trying to make it something that people will want, as opposed to, hey, please give me a lot of money so that I can have money to do my thing. I think that there's that element of people liking the idea of helping, which is attractive, but also they need to get something for the money that makes it seem equitable and worthwhile to them.
If you pay $10 to $15 or maybe $20 for a DVD on a store, why are you paying $30 for one in Kickstarter? Because what? Because it's an indie project? Because it's, what's up with that? Why the minimum amount just to appear in the credits is $10 or $5 for a thank you? It's like, dude, I mean, look at the market. Pre-sale if you want, but why are you making people pay more for? And if your target audience for the Kickstarter campaign are people that is related to cool and new things, that's all right, because it's like an added value. They're gonna spend it. But for normal people, if you want to reach like a broad audience, just pre-sale as you were in the market, competing to all the people and all the DVDs and all the films, and at the same time, perks, they give you a lot of work, and if that's the only way to fund your film, you're not gonna fund your film. For the cost now, from strictly crowdfunding, like selling merchandise, we raised like $50,000. Half of that went to pay for the stock of the things, all the t-shirts and the mailing and everything else, and the other half would have gone to pay the guys that were making packages for 5,000 people for 2 years. So in the end, there's no money for the film. We got the real money from investment, from crowd investment. People found on the internet that were buying a percentage of the film, but the rest was just promotion, which is great if you take it that way. It's like, okay, let's promote the film, let's gonna sell t-shirts, because that's gonna be people wearing a message of the film and telling about it, but to get real money out of that is difficult.
We were pre-selling the DVD, and because people really wanted to see the film, so that worked out really well. But yes, they were incredibly supportive. We couldn't believe it.
Kickstarter is fascinating. I think it's really interesting, just as as thinking about it, I think Peter Broderick talks about it. It's not just a fundraising thing. It's also a PR thing. So you have to think about it as, you know, a great way to get the word out about your film, whether or not people are donating. I think that's a really interesting element of it. And then the question of timing, like, do you do it at the beginning to get it off the ground, or in the case of film, like, do you wait until you're at that, you know, you've got a film, you've got something that people can get behind that looks very solid and real and tangible and doable and exciting, and then ask people to help to contribute, still knowing that DVDs are at least a year away. I mean, that actually has been one of the more difficult management issues, is that everybody, you know, people understand, they can get behind Kickstarter, but they may not understand that, like, it takes a long time for a DVD to come out. You know, they don't understand the way that films are typically distributed, and they don't necessarily understand, like, the work that has to go into getting something. You know, so, like, dealing with the audience saying, like, where's my DVD? When's that coming out?
Does get people involved and creates an audience that wants to see your movie, and that's invaluable. But there's, you know, I guess what I would say is none of these things come without, you don't gain something without giving something up. And I think that's the problem with social media is there tends to be a sense of, oh, it's all great, and it's not. You know, you're giving stuff up to get stuff, and you just have to decide, is what I'm getting worth more than what I'm giving up?
That's one of those cases where our entire momentum went back to zero, and it was very hard, not just to start up from that point, but to start off from a really, really low point. And you know,
and I think in general we are pretty good about, you know, if he's down about something, then, like, I'll pick it up. You know, it's like, okay, I'll keep working on it, while at the same time, like, splitting my attention between that and then also saying, like, you know, it's going to be okay, like this is what we're going to do. And then it's almost like that energy would then reverse, right? So it's like, you know, I'd spend so much time doing that, and it's like, okay, I'm ready now. And I'm like, no, I don't feel that. No, so I mean, I guess it's good that we have that we can at least, you know, it's almost like I can't feel, like, I don't have time to feel sorry for myself if I'm worried about getting it done and then making sure that he's okay. So as soon as he's okay, then okay, now I'll take a minute.
and then I can plug away for a bit and then check in on her and make sure that she's that she's doing all right.
But it has been sort of very emotional in that way, where, I mean, there's a lot of self-doubt. It's like, you know, you question why you're doing this, and, you know, there was one moment where I was in good spirits at this point, but I had just said, you know, it's like, if this works, this is just like 1/4 of the battle, because then we still have to shoot it, and then we have to do post, and then we have to distribute it. Like, there's so many pieces that require so much energy, and when you look at that path in front of you, it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then you know, wonder, like, is it worth it? Do you want to do it? And then you ask yourself those questions, but it's like, well, but I like it. I mean, I like doing it. If I'm having fun doing it, then okay, so the light's far away. But it's there because, I mean, you're not in darkness if you're having a good time doing it, and it's enjoyable, and it's something that you're passionate about and you love.
We keep ourselves going. So yeah, it's literally like, and luckily we're never at a point where we're both down.
Yeah.
So it's always just like,
he'll call me 4 in the morning, yo, oh, you good? Oh, and I'll call him again, oh, you good? We call each other, every like 2-3 hours we call each other.
The time it took, the intensity of it, I had 3 people working on it for 3 months. The $15,000 probably just barely paid our salary during those months, or their salaries, because I didn't take a salary. It paid their salaries during those months and left some money for us to stay operating. I think now, looking back on it, because it might have been fairly new at that time and people weren't familiar with it, we were educating our fan base as to what it was. I think my time might have been better used just going knocking on doors the way I had been doing, and I probably could have raised at least that much. Maybe today it's different. Maybe people know more about what these crowdfunding sources are and are more willing. But then I felt I could have used my time better, frankly.
I mean, it was a huge job creating all the video materials. You know, that was hugely consuming, because not only did we did the Kickstarter video, but we did maybe 200 or 300 all kinds of little videos of people in the streets and discussions and this and that, and we're, you know, putting them out throughout the campaign. So just trying to get all these videos together was a huge job. But not only that, just trying to present yourself to the world as a director. So not only did I had to create this campaign, but I had to create websites for all my past movies and create blogs and like create new trailers.
It has to be marketing, yeah.
I mean, I really had to spend, like, while I was presenting this film, I was trying to present myself to the social, you know, to the internet. Because and I noticed that, you know, what was on the web before I began was like totally wrong. Like, you know, people only remembered me from a couple of Roger Corman movies, which I'm so embarrassed about, you know, having even done. And no one seemed to have even known about my Sundance movies or the art films. So I had to like rebuild myself. So between the Kickstarter campaign and rebuilding myself, that was like 2 years of work. And now it's like a huge job just to run this campaign. And I have a couple of wonderful interns and friends and volunteers who encourage me and help, and I really thank them for this, you know.
I mean, the only dark side for us was that it's been really, really difficult and a pain in the ass to be trying to find money for 3 years and a half, because we are filmmakers and we love to do films, not to find money. So it's difficult, because we turn out to be executive producers looking for money, not on the studios or you know, wealthy people, but on, you know, just people on the internet asking them for $5 or $2 or whatever. So it's been difficult, but at the same time we learned like a lot, and we were able to get the money, shoot the film we wanted to make with the money we needed, to have complete freedom to, for example, because it was a need to be editing the film for 7 months, which is something, you know, not a single producer will allow you to do, and in the end to distribute it the way we want. So I don't think I'm gonna have a chance like this in my whole life again, like having complete freedom as a director, writer and producer to do the film I wanted to do.
I think you have to be very pessimistic, you know, and really look at conventional online conversion, you know, and online conversion is, you know, at best 1%. So, you know, which is very, so if you have 10,000 followers, say, which I almost do, say, so I have 8,000 followers on Twitter, and if I convert 1% of those to even look at my Kickstarter page, right? So what is 1% of 10,000? You know, I'm a math guy, so 10% is 1,000, so 1% is 100. Not much, right? So if I do a 1% conversion from my followers, so that's 100. And if I get 1% of those people to then convert from the conversion, because the first conversion is the click, the second conversion is the buy, that's one person out of my 10,000 followers who are going to contribute. Now, I think I'm probably going to do better than that, but if I really want to be conservative, that's what you're looking at. So, yes, you can use your followers, but you have to be very conservative about realistic about who you're going to convert. Now, I probably, you know, will have a higher conversion rate because I feel like, you know, I feel like I followed my, you know, 80-20 rule, in that, you know, I feel like I provide a lot of value to my followers, and I think I've maybe engendered goodwill amongst them, I like to think. And so, and I know there's certain people that I can call on to act, you know, and I've contributed to campaigns, etc. So, you know, I think, you know, you have to, so it's not an easy calculation, let me just put it that way. It's not just saying, oh, I have 8,000 people, so 8,000 people will contribute, or 4,000 will contribute, and Kickstarter says the average is $70, so then 4,000 times 70 is $40,000, $280,000. So I'm going to set my goal at, I'm going to be conservative and set my goal at 200,000. You know, that's crazy town. You know, it's not going to work like that.
Let's be really clear about the Louis C.K. correlation. Louis C.K. is an overnight sensation 20 years in the making. Louis C.K. decided he didn't want anybody to intermediate his career, and therefore, from the very beginning, he was building a direct relationship with his audience, right? His ability to now sell out of his own website came from a 20-year dedication, and he turned down money that he could have taken when he could have taken a deal where sort of somebody else was responsible for the audience, and kept his career smaller for a while because he wanted the direct relationship. He wanted to own the pipeline the whole time. That takes a tremendous amount of integrity and hard work, and a real desire for independence. And the fact is, like, not everybody actually wants an independent career. I would just like us to stop treating independent filmmaking as the calling card to the studio system. I don't think that's what it is, because that's not independent. If you want to build an independent career, you absolutely have to dedicate yourself to actively engaging your audience. Who is your audience? Well, I like to start here, right? We do this in the class that we teach all over the country, which is we ask someone in the audience to give us the log line and short synopsis of the film that they're thinking of crowdfunding. And they give the brief synopsis, and I look around to the crowd and I say, who else in here would be interested in seeing that? And without fail, 10 hands go up, and those people don't look the same, they don't belong to the same demographic. And I say, okay, now I want you to ask these people, where do you hang out online? What times of day are you online on those platforms? What kind of news do you look at? What kind of music do you listen to? What kind of blogs do you read, if any blogs? What do you do in your free time? Do you belong to any organizations, any alumni groups? Where'd you go to school? What makes you click when you click? And most importantly, where do you watch stuff when you watch it? So the information that you start to gather there lets you get really specific about how to spend your energy. Because where do you get most of your recommendations for film? From your friends, right? So you always start with the core group of people who are actively interested in seeking out new content, that are actively interested in seeking out the kinds of things that you're making, and you turn them into amplifiers over time. But it starts by joining the conversation. And you know what? It might mean we can't make meaningless drivel anymore. It might mean that we actually have to make stuff that like busts through the doors and says, I have arrived. Do you know what I mean? Like all of this year's breakout performance films at the Gotham Awards, I think all of them were crowdfunded. And It Felt Like Love and Dear White People and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, those are movies that literally kicked the doors open and said, I am here and you have never seen anything like me. So I think it has to come from a deep desire for independence, hard work, and patience. And there's a video that's been circulating that some big comedians like Reggie Watts and stuff got involved with that said they want a no funding platform called Work Harder. And I actually, while it was very funny, it really misunderstands what it takes to successfully crowdfund. And let me be clear, if you are a film artist, you are always crowdfunding. All of your funding, no matter whether it's people buying tickets at the box office or downloading your movie or giving you $25 to get your film off the ground in the earlier stages, it's all crowdfunding. And it all takes the same tools of identifying that audience, activating them, getting them excited, getting them to tell their friends at every stage of your film career. So crowdfunding has popped up as this word of the thing that we've needed to be doing all along, right? We've just figured out a way to pull, to actually make money marketing our films before we've even made them.
Well, I think any pursuit that you do in life is filled with failures and successes, and you often learn more from your failures than your success. So, of course you have to pick yourself up. What else? You're gonna lie in the dirt the rest of your life? It's not an option.
My advice is do it again, man. I mean, that's the joy. It's not a one-time thing. You tried, but do another version.
Like relationships.
Yeah, and what's interesting is you already have the people that donated to the first one that will be willing to contribute to your next one. So try it again. You know, maybe lower your expectations a little bit and try it again. And I've seen those be successful.
I think there's this false idea that you kind of you struggle, you make it. Oh, life's so easy now. I'm no celebrity, but I know people who've got further than me in the struggle, and it's always an effort. Every new project is a new effort. You know, every day is a day when I feel like Michael Douglas in Wall Street. You got to get up ready to bite the ass off a bear. Now, every day is a day when you've got to move forward.
When you're independent, when you first start, you have a tiny little audience. You're only one person. Maybe there's a few cast members tweeting and on Facebook. How many people can you reach? You know, it's like there's a whole Dungeons and Dragons world, WonderCon, Comic-Con. There's music that none of us know about. That the bands are making a living, they pay their mortgage. We don't know. They exist. And they have these huge fan bases that have nothing to do with mainstream media. They have nothing to do with radio. They have nothing to do with any of that. But they make music, they tour, they do their stuff. And that's what this is. There's room for all of us. We just need to stop thinking like, where's my $1 million check? The lottery's over, kids. The Industrial Revolution ended, so now it's time for us, the storytellers, to not fuck ourselves and to not get into this, oh my God, Veronica Mars is taking all our money. Shut up, just relax. They're not, it's not. Just how many people do you know? How much money do you want to raise? Do you think that all those people that you know can give you that much amount of money? They knew they could get $2 million from their giant audience.